therapy is most effective when combined with the right exercise prescription. In this video from the Perfect Comfort series, I'll be demonstrating how to prehabilitate your horse's back with a variety of suppling exercises. The exercises can also be used as part of a rehabilitation program because they focus on the very earliest phase of exercise prescription, which is establishing normal range of motion, which in turn optimises subsequent phases of strengthening, stamina, skill and speed or agility through a balanced and effective posture. You will also be able to select some helpful exercises to incorporate into your usual warm-up and cool-down routines. Ride with Your Mind expert, Mary Wanless, will demonstrate the influence of the rider on the horse's posture and how the rider can help the horse to willingly work comfortably on the bit. I will show you some simple exercises to help keep the novice dressage and show jumper's back supple and strong. Finally, advanced dressage rider and trainer Martin Greet will demonstrate his most effective back warm-up exercises for the advanced dressage horse. In this phase, I went to see Mary Wanless at work in her training centre in a quiet, picturesque village on the edge of the English Cotswolds, where she has started what I can only describe as an equestrian revolution. This video simply would not be complete without input about the influence of the rider on the horse from Mary Wanless, who I believe has made an unprecedented, immense contribution to horse welfare by preventing or reducing the horse's silent pain of working with mechanically inefficient postures, inadvertently yet too often harmfully caused by rider influence. Mary holds degrees in both physics and coaching and is a dedicated, prolific writer and filmmaker, as well as trainer of a team of accredited Ride With Your Mind coaches, working to help us all make our horses more comfortable by subtly yet drastically improving how we ride. She has painstakingly worked out which muscles elite riders use to ride a horse well and has devised a system which matches the varying learning styles, making it easier for riders to process and recall instructions to improve their riding and get instant results. For example, let's look at a replay in slow motion and see how the horse reacts instantaneously to the postural changes made by the rider that Mary has suggested to her. As a therapist, I have found that the Ride With Your Mind techniques combined with hands-on techniques are not merely the icing on the cake, they are one of the essential ingredients for successful rehabilitation. When I visited Mary coaching on one of her superb weekend training courses, I found her working with an older sport horse that had a long-standing hollow back developed from a history of poor rider posture. Recall that the rider is seated vertically on a horizontal suspension bridge. That bridge happens to be at its weakest under where the rider sits on the top line muscles, longissimus and latissimus dorsi, which play a major supporting role to that bridge. The rider must prevent the bridge collapsing by exerting a synchronous, self-supported, stable load that motivates the horse to gently push its back up and conform to, rather than hollow away from, the rider. Mary explained a common rider problem relating to the issue of an unstable vertical rider sitting on a moving horizontal beam that I highlighted in the introduction to this video, although Mary will demonstrate how that beam is not always quite horizontal under the horse's seat.
So my idea here is that the rider needs to put her stirrups so her thighs at about 45 degrees, as Nikki's thigh is here, which is halfway between horizontal and vertical. And when the horse hollows his back, the hollow would happen under the top of her thigh and her butt here. So you could say, here's the hollow, here's her thigh, knee, thigh, here's her upper body, and here's the hollow in his back that I call the man trap. So many riders would go foot forward, knee up, armchair seat, weight on your backside. And with your weight on your backside, you're squashing the middle of him down. The other possibility is that you're trying to be a dressage rider and you've got your stirrups so long you're trying to make your thighs vertical, and that puts all the weight down in the hollow of the horse's back. So this angle here is what makes leverage, that the weight at the knee here counterbalances the weight of the rider's upper body here, and the thigh is used as a lever. So in the same way that if I stand like this for any length of time, my quads are going to start hurting. When the rider's doing a good job, her quads are helping her hold herself in that balance, rather than just saying, hold me up, horse, and be my armchair. So that squashes him. So getting Nikki here to get where her quads are a really good lever, where her rising trot mechanism can rotate her thigh over her knee like this, like a windscreen wiper on a car, with nothing from the knee down changing, and really control each landing. So when she comes down in the saddle, she doesn't come down heavy in a way that squashes him. So if we think about the plane of up-down, our key question would be, is this back a hollow? Is it a flat surface? Is it a mound? And is the rider really plonked with her weight down that hollow, or can she use the leverage of her thigh to help lever her out of the man trap and literally begin to lever the back up underneath her? Another good way to think of it, so maybe Nikki, maybe you do this when I'm doing it. If you drop your reins and put your stick under your leg and put your hand like this, okay? And no, like that, okay? So that hand's the horse, and your knuckles like this are his spinal processes. Yep. And put the other hand on top. That hand's you, okay? So if you push the top hand down on the bottom hand, that doesn't work well. Rest the top hand on the bottom hand is one stage better. But can you use the skin or the glove on your top hand to pick up the bottom hand? Yeah? So there's a way in which the rider who's operating well can use her thighs like this to pick the horse's back up underneath her. When many people will be squashing it down, and some people wouldn't have their thigh on, so you can't pick something up if you're not touching it. Or maybe one thigh is on and the other one isn't. So there are many ways the rider can be that doesn't quite have that way of picking the horse up under her. And the other way to think about it is that when the horse is hollow, it's as if somebody put their hand on his muzzle, and his muzzle pushes back into his pole pushes back into his neck pushes back into his wither pushes back into his back makes a hollow, and the rider falls down the hole. And once the rider's body weight is down that hollow, she's perpetuating the hollow. And with the rider's use of her abdominal muscles, in the way skilled riders use core strength, what they do, if I can put my hands on you here, is at this level, if you think, pull your tummy in to make a wall, push your guts against that wall. And this is the same push you make if you clear your throat. If you go, or you cough, or you giggle, you naturally make this push. And you're making this push with your abdominal muscles, thinking of pushing any creases out of his neck that he might have here if he's scrunching back to you. So we're literally wanting to make the rider's push forward that she makes with her abdominal muscles bigger than the horse's push back. And the way riders engage their abdominal muscles and found core strength is the same thing that you would do if you were to go and clear your throat. Only they're doing that permanently. So there's one more thing I might be able to just demonstrate with him. So he's an old guy and a rather hollow guy, but there is some response in his back here when I do a belly lift on him. And a bit more response here from this side, a somewhat reluctant response, but a slight response. And it's like the rider's endeavouring to have this effect of drawing the back up under her by her way of being able to push the head and neck away, kneel out of his man trap, and find that way of drawing him up under.
Let's consider Mary's concept with the horse and rider on the move. This horse has a long-standing movement pattern of hollowing his back. Mary works through the problem by adjusting how the rider uses her posture to encourage the horse to adjust his posture.
Trying to kneel your way out of the hollow when it's a hollow.
The rider becomes even more strong and secure by kneeling firmly into the saddle, swinging from the knees with highly toned spinal musculature, which will offer even more stability to her upper body and keep her out of what Mary terms the man trap, that moving hollow in the horse's back that makes it impossible to influence the horse's movement when the rider is unable to ride their way out of it.
Knees down, wider through your knee, really narrow through your front. Go. Well done.
The rider has achieved a very good cadence and rhythm to this horse's movement, but it is proving more difficult to encourage the horse's head and neck down, round and away from her. The hollow horse feels like it is pushing backwards through the hinds instead of lifting the rider lightly upwards, along and forwards. Part of this fix is for the rider to make their push forwards through the pelvis greater than the horse's push back out behind the saddle as opposed to under it. Using whips and spurs is not the solution for this gait problem, as the rider keeps working hard on maintaining effective stability and balance in her own posture so that she can gently pick up the horse's back as she swings forward with her pelvis. The horse soon mirrors this and finally softens through his back when he senses that the rider is a far easier load to balance vertically on his horizontal suspension bridge of his back. Mary, thank you very much for explaining how the rider can positively influence the horse's back muscles. Tell us what projects you are currently working on.
So at the moment I'm working on a series of DVDs that were actually filmed in a symposium that Heather Blitz and I taught together in Minnesota a couple of years ago. Heather was the US team reserve for the Olympics in 2012 and is a stunning rider that I've taught for the last 17 or 18 years. So there's that going on. And I'm also writing what is currently a series of articles but will become a small book with a fellow called Tom Myers, whose speciality is functional anatomy, and it's all about how muscles work in chains and how organising those muscle chains between the horse and the rider is really how the rider has influence.